Hello, welcome to the Jack and Jack Show. Jack Stroudley filling in today for Joe Sanson, who is busy at work. Jack, how are you?
Very well, Jack. Thank you for having me on as usual. I always enjoy talking Fulham, but now is a particularly positive time to talk about Fulham.
Mm.
And yeah, I'm doing well. I'm doing very well indeed.
Good, no, good to hear. And we'll get into all the fallout from Brighton and look ahead to Wolves. Just before, we have to mention our season sponsor, Green King Sports. We thank them again for their continued support on the channel. It's where football is more than a game. And if you can't make it to a game of any game that is televised, head down to a Green King pub and you can watch the action. They have an app as well, the Green King Sport app, where you can get discounts and deals and competitions. And you'll be helping out Fulhamish by doing that as well, which is an extra incentive. Looking ahead to the fixtures this weekend. So if you do want to head down to a pub, on the box, the early kickoff, Manchester United hosting Everton on TNT Sports at Old Trafford, of course. Now, what happened the last time a team went to Old Trafford? I can't quite remember. I
I
think we
wonder.
may have
I
won.
wonder.
There's only 3 o'clock, so one of which is us away at Wolverhampton Wanderers. Arsenal on the 5:30 at home to Brentford. Arsenal, of course, can't play David Raya, so Aaron Ramsdale will probably most definitely be a goal in that game. Arsenal won the reverse fixture by 1-0, and they'll be looking to, well, put the knife in Brentford a little bit more. I mean, they got a 2-2 draw against Chelsea last week, Brentford, but they're still not out of it. They're still not out of it. They'll be looking over their shoulders. Now, Super Sunday is, sometimes you look at the fixtures and you go, that's not a Super Sunday. However, this week is, by definition, Super Sunday, but it's also Mother's Day as well. So might not be able to catch this. Aston Villa, high-flying Aston Villa hosting Spurs. That's the earlier time of a 1 o'clock kickoff on Sky Sports. And the late game at 3:45. Again, a bizarre kickoff time, but okay. Liverpool hosting Manchester City. Probably the biggest game of the season so far.
Yeah.
Within the context of the season and the title race. Monday Night Football, Newcastle head to Walham Green for the Monday Night Football. Mauricio Pochettino's side hosting Eddie Howe's side. And Jack, that's it. That's the football this weekend. Fulham play Wolves. We'll get onto it. But first, I mean, how good has this season been? Like, let's go back to the time of like October and September where we were like struggling to score goals. And, there was a lot of games like Palace away, Spurs away, just lots of like really poor performances. And we were sort of looking over our shoulders. But Jack, we've beaten United 2-1. We've beaten Brighton 3-0. Even even in the form now we're on, I was not expecting us to win 3-0 against Brighton and Hove Albion. What did you make of the game? And how happy are you with this Fulham team at the moment?
Yeah, it's a really, really enjoyable time to be a Fulham fan. Obviously, we've got quite a healthy gap now on the bottom three. I don't think anyone's worried at all whether about that. Obviously, it's not mathematically confirmed, but I don't think anyone's particularly worried about that. And it's just a real positive time. Similar to you, I thought we were going to beat Brighton. I'll be honest with you. We've got a pretty good record against Brighton, and they're a team that they kind of blow hot and cold at certain periods, and it just felt like Fulham were going into an ascendancy a little bit. But I didn't think we'd win 3-0. And in terms of the manner of the performance, it was good. It was really good from Fulham. Obviously, Brighton controlling a lot of the ball, but Marco Silva kind of just set up the team to allow them to do that, and we were very clinical when we did have chances. I'm sure we'll get into individual performances, but the goals, all of them were very, very well taken finishes. And yeah, Fulham, it's now a real positive time. And as you say, it's been a pretty positive, season given, some of the constraints that we had in the summer and some of the concerns that we had in the early stages of the season. I said this after the Manchester United game. Marco Silva appears to have made something out of what really felt like a bit of a nothing season. Obviously, the Manchester United win, which we've kind of referenced about 4 times already in the last 4 minutes. We got 4 points. Got 4 points off of Arsenal. We're still in with a chance of a top half finish. The Carabao Cup semi-final as well. All despite whatever you want to talk about off the field, Marco Silva continues to shine on the field, and this Fulham team, they seem to be growing from strength to strength, especially now we've got the AFCON boys back, and we seem to have a number 9 who's firing. We're really starting to show that we are a proper mid-table Premier League side.
And it's a joy to behold and say those words. And you mentioned the guys from AFCON, and during that time where they were away, we obviously missed them for both the Carabao Cup games, the FA Cup game against Rotherham, the loss to Chelsea, and I think the loss to Newcastle as well, I believe, in the FA Cup.
Yeah.
And then they came back and they came back and made not only a goal scoring difference with Bassi and Iwobi scoring at Old Trafford. I don't know if we mentioned that, but they scored at Old Trafford last week and we won the game. And but also the performance on Saturday, those two players in particular, Bassi so assured at the back, so good, and Iwobi, I wouldn't say the difference maker, but he adds so much to that midfield, so much energy, gets away from danger, counter-attacking team like we are right now, and he's brilliant at that ball carrying ability. And Alex Iwobi, when we signed Alex Iwobi, I was very underwhelmed. I was thinking, really, for that money? But actually, I think he could be playing his best football of his career at Fulham, and that's quite a small sample size because obviously he's not been here long, and he was at Everton for quite a while. And you'd probably have to ask Everton fans what they thought of Iwobi back when he was playing at Goodison Park, but especially Arsenal, where he sort of struggled at Arsenal because he was a youngster and he's trying to get into it. I think Unai Emery was manager at that point, and he did well for Arsenal, but the maturity we're seeing from him, the role that he's been given by Marco Silva, we're seeing some really good stuff from Alex Iwobi. I think it was a major help that a player like Baleba got booked after 8 minutes. A player like that in the midfield to be on a yellow card after 8 minutes really means that he has to be careful. But Fulham were brilliant. Harry Wilson's goal, albeit brilliant finish, but Rodrigo Muniz makes this happen. Tenacity to win that ball, not only once, but then twice, and actually stoop his head quite low in a dangerous position where he could have got kicked in the head, but he got away with it. Well, he got away with it and put the ball onto Wilson. And every time Wilson runs towards goal and cuts in, you think, this is at least going on target. And he's got such a wonderful left foot. Just talk to me about that first goal before we get on to the others.
Yeah, I mean, Rodrigo Muniz has absolutely no right to win that ball in the position that he's in. But, he bullies one defender, flicks it on, then kind of flicks it on again to Harry Wilson. As you mentioned, it's a good finish from Harry Wilson. In that kind of area, I'm normally pretty confident that he's going to at least test the keeper. And obviously this time he put it into the back of the net. And as you said, it's a good finish, but all the credit goes to a certain Brazilian who has just been absolutely remarkable for us over the last month or so. It's one thing to score goals, and I'm sure we'll get onto his goal, but it's another thing as well being a number 9, having that, that build-up play and being, the ability to, be a nuisance to, opposing defenders. And it's something that we've, lacked a little bit over the course of this season, barring this last month or so where Rodrigo Muniz has really kicked on. And it just adds so many more opportunities to score if your wide players are able to be clinical, which Harry Wilson was on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Great finish. And then, like Son and Harry Kane, those two just sort of combining and setting up each other. We're seeing a new partnership at Fulham here with Rodrigo Muniz and Wilson, because Wilson returns the favour. By the way, what a cross. I mean, we've actually in the last couple of home games seen some really good crossing to set up Rodrigo Muniz. The one from Willian that set up Muniz up against Bournemouth. And then the one, I know Villa obviously was the next home game, but then the one against Brighton, Wilson's ball from Muniz. And again, Muniz, tenacity. He's not favourite to win that ball. He runs onto it, sort of jinks away and then sort of runs back in and sort of detracts one of the defenders and then gets in between the two. Oh, it's just such a satisfying sort of retro. You kind of reminds you of sort of Alexander Mitrovic sort of header, the header he scored against Crystal Palace last season on the last home game of the season. That sort of header, I know that was from a free kick, but again, Wilson's delivery, just brilliant, on the money. Muniz, mate, I am so sold on Muniz. And actually, it's a point worth making now. Richarlison is injured. He is injured, but he's still been named for the Brazil squad. And we saw Pereira, obviously, congratulations to him getting the Brazil squad. But if Richarlison has to pull out and not play for Brazil, surely Muniz is top of the list to actually replace him.
Yeah, I mean, if Rodrigo Muniz gets a call up to the Brazil squad, I'm buying a shirt with Muniz and his Brazilian number on the back, because
I think I will, yeah, definitely.
Could you imagine saying that 2 months ago? Like, just the sudden, upturn in form has been absolutely unbelievable. And as you kind of touched on there, dare you say, Mitrovic-esque in terms of his performances, and seeming to be able to kind of pop up with a goal and get in between the lines and be in the right place at the right time, and with some good finishes as well. And he's been absolutely unbelievable to Fulham. And I'm starting more and more to think it's not just a bit of a purple patch, because I feel like with strikers, when you get a purple patch, it is just they seem to be in the right place at the right time, and the ball just goes in the back of the net. But he's performing like a proper number 9 outside of goals. His attacking influence is unbelievable. His positioning, he runs about. He's an absolute nuisance, and he's playing, like someone more mature than the 22-year-old that he is. And he looks like he looks a real good player. And I'm starting to grow more and more confident that this isn't just a little patch, and that we do have someone really quite talented on our hands here.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. And you have to look all the way back to the beginning of the season, where we knew Mitrovic was off. That left us with 3 strikers in Vinicius, Raul Jimenez, and Rodrigo Muniz. And that didn't, on paper, fill me with a lot of confidence. I don't think it filled many Fulham fans with a lot of confidence. And you go back to the stage at the beginning of the season where we were struggling to score. We'd get the odd, we got the 1-0 win against Luton. That was big. Vinicius scored. But in terms of Marco Silva's always wanted to play with a focal point of a striker, someone who can hold up the ball. We've seen it since he joined with, obviously, Mitrovic, firing us to the Premier League, 43 goals, unbelievable. And then, obviously, last season, he was a major contributor into the fact that we did really well last season. The team plays better as a collective when you have a player who's able to hold up the ball, striker, because it basically just links everything in the final third. And Vinicius, we weren't seeing enough from him. Then we got a couple of wins. We grinded out a couple of results. Then Raul Jimenez started to actually play very, very well. And, he contributed really well in the 5-0 wins against Forest and West Ham. Then he got injured. And then you're suddenly thinking, we're actually going to have to rely on Rodrigo. And we saw glimpses of Rodrigo Muniz against Ipswich Town in the FA Cup. Decent performance. Decent, got his goal as well. And then finally, we're sort of seeing this all-round play from Muniz. Links play, scores goals, contributes brilliantly. And that is a huge catalyst as to why we're doing so well right now. You could talk about, Sasha Lukic is burst in form, Harrison Reed as well, Iwobi, Bassi, all these players. But it all comes, I suppose it all comes from the back, but also comes from the front, because that's where you create the chances. And you've got a player like Muniz who's finally found his place in the team to hold up the ball, link play, score goals, like I just said, yeah? And it makes the world of difference. It's brilliant. I love it. And I agree with you. I hope it's just not like a flash in the pan. I hope let's not forget, he's 22. He's got so much potential. And it's interesting because when we first signed Muniz, it was like, well, he's obviously not going to play because Mitrovic is number 1. And then you think, well, he's obviously not going to play because we've got Raul Jimenez, we've got Vinicius. But actually, I don't wish any injuries on anyone ever, especially Fulham players. Literally, especially Fulham players. But it's like there's a silver lining to everything.
Yeah,
there's a silver lining to these injuries to Raul Jimenez. Vinicius obviously went out on loan. We talked about it with Joe last week about how Muniz, if he sticks around, will be huge for us going forward. Maybe as a backup striker, if we got another one in the summer. Jay Stansford's coming back as well. But it's incredibly exciting. Just more on the game. I thought Fulham did really well just to contain Brighton. They obviously had their chances with Ferguson. They hit the post as well. And then just play them on the break. And Bobby Reid off the bench wins the ball off Pascal Gross, feeds in the player you want running at goal in Adama Traore, because he came on at Wolves last season in the 0-0 draw. And I was like, I am fearing for my life. And he was terrible in that 0-0 draw. Now he's going to be playing at Wolves, and we'll get onto it very, very shortly. But just talking about that third goal, icing on the cake. And again, like a very much like 10-11, 11-12 sort of Fulham Premier League victory. Comfortable. Everyone sort of expected it, and it happened. Clint Dempsey sort of vibes. Pogredniak sort of vibes.
Yeah, really good finish from Adama Traore, who, you know, he's been injured for so long. It feels like we've got a new signing, you know, in terms of his ability off the bench. He's so direct and so explosive that he's always going to be a nuisance, and he's the last player you want to see coming off the bench if you're an opposing team. But yeah, it's a good ball through from Bobby Reed and Adama Traore one-on-one. You're thinking, is he going to do what Adama Traore stereotypically does, you know, and not score? But it's a really, really composed finish, and I'm very happy for him that he's got that goal. And yeah, it just kind of icing on the cake of very good Fulham performance. You know, saw it out defensively, really, really solid. You know, as you mentioned, Brighton had their moments, but Fulham, you know, contained them quite well, and then, you know, had chances to score a third before that, as well, through, you know, Andres Pereira. Harry Wilson had a couple of chances as well in the second half. But to get that third, you know, it's just a real, you know, good day at the office, and just a comfortable win for Fulham. And, you know, it's just a real positive time to be around the club. And, you know, these last few months, as so obviously we're not in the FA Cup anymore, and it's just, let's just enjoy what we're currently dealing with in the league, and we're having a really good time of it.
We could have easily crumbled after losing to Newcastle, because that's essentially the season over. And this was, despite having like some really good wins this season, you know, against Arsenal, United, whatever, this was for me the most pleasing win of the season. Just because, listen to this, yeah, we made 5 substitutions in the game, and we brought on Amanda Brozier, Tom Kearney, Bobby D. Cordova-Reid, Adama Traore, and Willian. That is just good Premier League squad depth, and a good squad. We just have a good squad. And the players, the 4 players who didn't make it on, obviously Rodak, because Leno just is in goal. Tim Ream, solid option off the bench, even starting, I'd still believe. Kenny Tete, of course. And Fodo Ballatore, who we haven't seen an awful lot of this season, but would be a safe pair of hands if he did come on the pitch. And it's so weird, because we've sort of we went in the summer, I don't think the business has been good enough. We've sold Mitch, blah, blah, blah. Paulinho almost left. This is even about João Paulinho. And he's back, obviously, on Saturday. The squad's in such good shape. And we've only got one player out in Raul Jimenez. And, you know, we've got exciting players who are coming through the ranks. Luke Harris out on loan. Jay Stansell's coming back. Kieran Bowie's doing bits for Northampton. We've got Josh King, who looks like the next big thing. I mean, I'm so excited about this team. It's great. It's great. And what the consequence means, we're 12th of the table. We are, you know, 50. Oh my gosh, we are 15 points away from 18th now. That's and I like having this conversation, because there's no way in God's green earth, which is beautiful, by the way, that we go down. There's no way, absolutely no way. So now we can start, and I'm sure Marco and the Khans and Alice McIntosh have all started to look, I hope, have all started to look towards next season. You know, can we get in that Andre player? Can we actually get him over the line while his stock's still high? What sort of targets are we going to target in the summer? And Jack, it's finally happening. It's finally happening, where we came up, stayed up. Yeah, but can we maintain that? Huddersfield, they stayed up, but they didn't maintain it. They did terribly the next season. And we just have, because we have a good manager who gets the best out of what he has, even if we're not very happy with the summer business. And that is why Marco Silva, alongside our next opponents in Gary O'Neill, for me, outside of the bloody, you know, title race nonsense, it's good fun, but it's, for me, it's, you know, focus on mid-table. Those 2 managers are the underrated managers of the season, before it will be like Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp and Mikel Arteta, for me personally.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement to make. A lot of people at the start of the season, you know, had Fulham and Wolves not necessarily to go down, to be right, to be in that, you know, lower echelon of the table. And, you know, Wolves sit on 38 points, I think it is, at the start of March, and we're sat on 35. You know, we're both doing really, really well. having lost, key players in the summer. They lost Ruben Neves and Mateus Muniz as well. And, they've been able to recruit well. And, similarly to Marco Silva, Gary O'Neill is getting the best out of a certain group of players, playing a certain way and trying to be entertaining while doing that. And, it's just as you've mentioned, Fulham now, they're in a position, ironically, kind of very similar to what we saw this time last season, where we're in the position now, we're going to stay up, let's start focusing and planning. And as you mentioned, the question marks over the recruitment in the summer, which I still think are pretty valid question marks to have. But Marco Silva proving why he's such an unbelievable coach, getting the best out of a group of players. And as now everyone's fully fit, we seem to have a pretty complete squad. So it's quite intriguing to see where we're going to be at by the start of August, hopefully with a few more additions. Because obviously we've still got a couple of question marks in relation to Tosin's contract. Kenny Tete's out of contract as well. Obviously, I can't imagine Armando Broja will stay at the club as well. And the João Palhinha situation is what it is. But in terms of focusing on the now, it's a very enjoyable time for Fulham. And it's a very enjoyable time, I think, for Wolves as well, who I'm sure we'll get onto now. As you said, they're on 38 points. They've got Coventry City in the FA Cup quarter-final at home. I know they beat Rotherham last night at the time of recording, but it's, that's a good opportunity for them to get to a semi-final and to get to Wembley. And they've had some really good days this season as well. Wolves, they won away at Chelsea, they won away at Tottenham. So I think it's going to be a really, really entertaining game on Saturday. I think it's going to be a really good game.
I think it'll be a good sort of wholesome game where, like, obviously they'll want to win and we want to win, but both teams have achieved very good things this season. Obviously, like you say, Matheus Cunha out, Hwang Hee-chan also maybe out as well. This is how they lined up against Newcastle with Jose Sarr in goal. They played a back three of Totti, Dawson and Max Kilman. And then on either side, Semedo and Ait Nuri as sort of wing backs. And then was it Tommy Doyle or Thomas Doyle and of course Mario Lemina in the midfield. And then a little bit further forward, this is how it's displayed on Flash Scores, which, not sure, but I think this is how they sort of lined up. Bellegarde, who looked really good, actually. Sarabia, who's always got his threats. And then, of course, their key man up front in Pedro Neto. Again, it doesn't scream wow. And that's why Gary O'Neill deserves so much credit for what he's done. Actually, it's worth noting that Daniel Bentley came on for Jose Sarr, which might have been a forced change. They also brought on Hugo Bueno, Chirara, I'm not sure who that is, Fraser, who's a youth player, Nathan Fraser, and then another player who's also called Boubacar Traoré. Interesting. They lost 3-0. They lost 3-0 to Newcastle. I thought all three Newcastle goals were very lucky and sort of like weren't very much well worked. It was just like managed to squeeze the ball over the line. And Wolves had their chances in the first half as well. This was not going to be an easy game. We obviously drew there last season. We just about beat them at Craven Cottage. They gave us a good game with Willian scoring 2 penalties. How'd you see it going?
I think it's going to be a really, really good game of football, to be perfectly honest with you. I think it's a game, if you're going on Saturday, I think it's not going to be a dead rubber, shall we say. I think both teams are going to give it a go. We've got a really poor record at Molineux. I can't really think of a time where we've won at Molineux, to be
one penalties in 2015.
Yeah, as I say, we won that penalty shootout, the FA Cup replay where it snowed, and God knows how the game didn't get called off, and it snowed. Couple of draws. I remember we drew 4-4 there under Jukanovic. Bit of a mental game. Drew obviously 0-0 there last season, missed a penalty to win it. But I think it's going to be a really good game. I mean, he definitely will come back in. But I guess the only kind of question mark in terms of the team is, assuming everyone's still fit, is, who does João Palhinha come in for? Is it Harrison Reed? Is it Harrison Reed or is it Sasha Lukic? And I've been thinking about it kind of throughout the week. And every time I think about it, my answer seems to change because of Harrison Reed's a fantastic presser of the ball and whatnot. But Sasha Lukic is really good in transition as well. So it's really... it could, a flip of a coin. If you was to ask me now, I'd probably say I'd have Palhinha next to Harrison Reed.
Right.
But I mean, you could probably ask me tomorrow, and I'll say Sasha Lukic. My mind just keeps flipping between the two because I think you can make very good argument to either of them, to be honest with you.
That is the tricky question. I think no doubt Paulinho has to come back in because, he is the difference maker. And albeit we've done so well without him, and that's impressive in itself, gives me confidence that if we lose him in the summer, we will be able to cope. However, enjoy him while we can. I'm not resigned to him leaving, but he could leave. He might not. You never know. But Paulinho comes back in for me. I keep everything the same, midfield and forwards. Same lineup again. Don't change a winning formula, but tweak it slightly because João Paulinho is probably the most elite player we have in our squad. I'd take him out for Lukic, and I think that's harsh. I think if United game had come after Brighton and we saw that performance from Lukic, it would be Harrison Reed that comes out.
Yeah.
However, Harrison Reed for me was quite good on Saturday, and actually, you know what? He was quite sloppy in the first half, but I think the energy and bite he brings in midfield and able to drift wide, and we'll get those opportunities to obviously counter on when we're on the ball and sort of coming forward. Harrison Reed will drift into those positions like we saw against Man United, like we've seen, in numerous away games we played over the last couple of years. I would be a little bit more. I don't say a little bit of a throwback because then we'd have Harrison Reed, João Paulinho, and Andres Pereira in midfield, which is the midfield trio of last season, which obviously worked very, very well. But if the game is tight and it's stretched, it's tight or it's stretched, maybe Sasha Lukic is an option to bring off the bench. And of course, we've got some amazing options, like I just said, off the bench. Tom Kearney, Bobby Reed, Adama Traore, Willian, Lukic, or Harrison Reed, depending on who starts. And yeah, incredibly exciting. A score prediction for the game against Wolverhampton Wanderers.
I think it could go either way, to be honest with you. I think it's very much flip of a coin. Obviously, as you mentioned, no Hwang, no Matheus Cunha, which is a big bonus for Fulham. Obviously, they're coming off the back of a difficult game at St James's Park. Narrowly got past Sheffield United in the league before that as well. I think it's going to be an entertaining one. I think there's going to be quite a few goals. I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw. I think it's going to be quite an entertaining game. I'm going to go 2-2.
Desmond, good. Yeah, I could see it happening. I am very confident in this Fulham team at the moment, and I'm not really scared of any opponent. Obviously, Neto is fantastic, and Dawson is a very good defender. Kilman's a very good defender. They've got quite a solid back line. Semedo likes to bomb forward. Nori likes to bomb forward. Lemina's got that bite in midfield. Doyle's got that creativeness as well in midfield. I think Fulham are going to win again. I think we're going to win by 3-1.
3-1, bloody hell.
I think we'll go 2-0 up. They'll get a goal back and we will seal it on the break. Because it will be nervy for about 5 minutes where they get a goal back and the crowd get up again and they'll probably have another chance. But we will hit them. I don't think it'll be a Adama Traore necessarily scoring on the break, but he might contribute on the break. I could see TC coming off the bench and scoring in this one, which would be nice to see him seal the win. Yeah, I just got a lot of confidence in this Fulham team. And if we do win, we go above Wolves, which would be great. And obviously Chelsea play on Monday night, so we would, for a couple of days be above Chelsea in the table and actually be into the top half of the table for, I think, probably like the first time in the season since maybe like we beat Everton on the opening day of the season.
Yeah, probably it sounds about right, yeah.
Exciting. Very exciting. Yeah, I just have a lot of confidence in this team, and I think it's good because Marco Silva was asked about this in his last press conference about staving off relegation threats, and he was like, "I was never even looking at relegation as like an aim to survive it. We want to aim higher than that," which is great because not only should that be the mentality of Silva, but also should be the mentality of the fans as well, because we are a really good team. But then again, like at the beginning of the season, when you all start on 0 points, you have a bad start of the Premier League season, it can get very squeaky bum time, do you know what I mean? And you have to sort of, you look at Palace this season, they've had to sort of work their way out of trouble. Bournemouth as well were in a whole heap of trouble at the beginning of the season. Burnley and Sheffield United have not been able to even get out of trouble. But Fulham was there a stage in the season where you were slightly concerned? I can't seem to remember a time where we were sort of hovering.
No, I don't think I've ever been worried about us going down. There have been times where we'd kind of, lost a few, and it's a bit like, I think we're going to pick up results, but if we don't, it might be a bit concerning. I remember, obviously, that December period, obviously we won the 2-5 nils, but then we lost to we lost to Burnley, and we lost quite comfortably to Bournemouth as
Oh,
well.
That's bad.
But then we went and beat Arsenal on straight after that, and it was all again. Then it looked a little bit rosy, and then we had the cup. So there's never really been a time where I think Fulham could go down here. There's probably been a few times where I've been a little bit frustrated in terms of how good we were last year, and then we had performances that were quite poor. But that happens over a 38-game season, and when you're a mid-table, or aspiring to be a mid-table Premier League side, you go through stages where you're strong, and you like we are now, and you're on a run of games, and you're playing really, really well, and then you do have periods of the season where you drop off, and there are weird kind of things where everyone obviously we talk about the fact you got 4 points off of Arsenal, but then in true mid-table fashion, we only got a point out of 6 off of Burnley, so yeah. It's just one of those things. And as long as you're consistently ticking along, which Fulham have been, you allow yourself then the scope to grow, which Fulham are doing now, and now they're well clear of the bottom 3.
It's been a really enjoyable period to be a Fulham fan. Just quickly, I have a feeling which would be really underrated and really like sort of out of the blue, but given like April last season, we hit some really bad form. We lost to Bournemouth, lost to West Ham towards the end of the season, and we beat Everton to sort of get us back on track. I think we might break our points tally record this season. Honestly,
I hope so. We've got a pretty decent run between now and the end of the season. We've got Tottenham a week on Saturday at home. So in terms of the big sides, you've got Liverpool and City also at home. But then the rest of it, in terms of your away games, you've got Wolves, you've got Sheffield United, Nottingham Forest, Luton. They're all games that you can look at getting a good chunk of points at. West Ham. We've still got Palace at home as well. We still have to go to Brentford as well. So there's
Newcastle.
Oh yeah, we've still got a good chunk of games where you can look at it, and Fulham have proven now we can give absolutely anybody a go. And if the squad can stay fit, who knows? Who knows? The aspiration, obviously, this season was to avoid the drop quite comfortably, which we've done that. But it's all about reevaluating what your aspiration could be, and I think Fulham, if we get a positive result on Saturday against Wolves, there's nothing to say that Fulham can't finish in that top half.
Yeah, and that I mean, top half finishing above Chelsea, that's really, really, really pleasing. If we would do that 2 seasons in a row, that would show a huge sign of progression. And it was amazing because there was actually a tweet that kind of went a little bit viral in a couple of days ago. I think it was after Blades lost 6-0 at Arsenal, and it was like, was it like, can Sheffield United, West Brom, Norwich, and like Burnley just never come back to they're just so boring? And someone replied, I think it might have been a Fulham fan under it, was like, because it said the word yo-yo in it, and it was like Marcus Silva's beating the yo-yo allegations, and like a really funny gif, and it got a whole load of likes. And it's true, we've beaten the yo-yo allegations, and people might now look at teams like Sheffield United and Burnley, because I'd imagine they are going to go down now, and then they'll probably, I'd say Burnley more than Sheffield United, just because of, actually I don't really know why, but they could just come straight back up, and then suddenly everyone's like, well, they're the yo-yo team now. And it's just good to get away from that sphere, and maybe we can sort of go from a yo-yo club to we could be back in European contention. Who knows? Jack, it's been an absolute pleasure. You're not going to be at Wolves on Saturday, I believe.
No, unfortunately, I'm not at Wolves. Work calls, so I can't get there. But anyone who is going, enjoy yourselves up in the Midlands. Hopefully, it's not as scorchingly hot as it was when we played them last season, and there was the fire show, which everyone complained about afterwards. But it should be a good day out. And yeah, come on Fulham, I guess.
Oh, absolutely, come on Fulham. You're going to Sheffield United though. That will be great.
I am. I'm very much looking forward to that. Yeah.
Me and Joe Santos were talking the other night, like, if we don't beat Sheffield United away, that would be very upsetting, given their home form. But you never know. This is my first away game I'm going to since, out of London. Obviously, I went to Chelsea, but since Everton in the Cup. So, I've really missed that sort of going to away games. And, obviously after United, I was like, right, that is it. We have to be there no matter what. And yeah, can't wait. I think this is such a good time to be a Fulham fan. And Jack, I must thank you for being here.
Cheers, Jack. Cheers for having me. I always enjoy coming on, even if it is at the expense of Joe Sansom. And as we've touched on, it's a very, very good time. So enjoy it, because football is very cynical and can turn very quickly. So enjoy this while it lasts.
The mood on the Jack and Joe show has really been fluctuated this season, actually, because it was a lot of doom and gloom when we couldn't score goals. There's the head loss of losing Mitrovic, but now it's as high as it's ever been on the Jack and Joe show, Jack and Joe show since we began it under Scott Parker, which was seems like a lifetime ago now. Penny for Scott Parker's thoughts, because he was on the Saturday Night Football against Bournemouth versus Manchester City last week or the week before, and he's seen two teams he's managed just completely surpass expectations whilst he was managing with those teams in Premier League situations. It's quite remarkable, isn't it? He must be feeling a little bit sheepish.
Yeah, I imagine he's a little bit glum, and I mean, especially after he went to Belgium, and it didn't work out for him in Belgium either. So maybe stick to the punditry, Scott,
or maybe just play your best players in their natural positions, like Alexander Mitrovic, and not Ivan Cavallero up front. Josh Maja was good, but you know what? If we had, I know obviously I appreciate them. Sorry, I appreciate the midfield we have. Yeah, if we had a midfield midfield options. Paulinho, Anguissa, O'Reilly, Reed, like that is Carvalho. I think we'd win the Premier League, Champions League.
Get your passports out. Get your passports out now, because we're off to Macedonia.
We would lose all credibility by signing up to the Super League with that sort of team. But yeah, that's just part and parcel of football. Football is a very funny game, and right now it's as good as it gets for Fulham fans. It could get better. You never know. Jack, I'm sorry for going on a little bit there, but it's always good to celebrate the good times, because the bad times feel like death. So thanks so much for watching. Come on, Fulham. We'll see you at Wolves, and we'll see you next week.